Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm author ER Reading, and today for you I have the first video in a series of videos called A Guide to Being Successful as a Pantser. Alright, so if you're new here, please do subscribe so you never miss one of our videos and hit the notification bell. Today I'm going to talk about what this series is about, and then I'll go into today's topic. So this series I wanted to dedicate to pantsers and tips and tricks and how you can be successful as a pantser. A lot of the times out there for resources are pantser guides. If you plot this, then you will be more successful when you finish. If you edit this way. And there's not a whole lot for pantsers other than the fact that they need a lot of editing generally, and they just go by the seat of their pants. And there's not a whole lot of tips and tricks out there, so this series is dedicated to teaching you tips and tricks that will help you with your writing routine and being successful as a pantser. So today's topic is, what kind of pantser are you? And yes, there are different types. I'll go over the two that I've come up with, and you can kind of see where you fit into these two categories. So the first one is dedicated to what I like to call a full pantser. This is the typical definition you'll see if you search it up, which is you have this slight inkling of a character, a scene, or a setting, or a minor plot point, and then you just run with it. You fly by the seat of your pants and you just write. And that's the first kind of pantser. The second kind of pantser is more of a plantser, which is kind of where I sit on the scale, where you can have like a rough outline, not necessarily like in-depth plotting, but you can have a little bit of a rough outline. You generally know your characters a little bit better before you start diving into the story. But you still sit down and you can veer off outline and be just fine with that, especially if it turns out better than what you originally outlined. And it kind of, you go by the seat of your pants still with a light outline. My first novel, Soul Chaser, that I ever finished drafting was a process of, I found some Pinterest prompts and I sat down and I wrote. I had one character and I just wrote. And it turned out way different than I could have ever imagined, just simply because of the magic of pantsing. Now, either one of these types of pantsers are still pantsers, and they're very free flow style when it comes to writing, and knowing which one you are can help you a lot. So before I got more into writing, I thought I was the first one. But as I got to know myself better and how much I disliked editing my work, I figured that outlining a little bit more was better for me in the long run than just sitting down and having to edit my mess as much. But not saying that I don't just sit down and write on occasion. It's more when I'm doing a long series that I need to know certain things about character development in order for my brain to know where the character is going, just so that I can kind of have an idea of what I can put them through and what I can't. So once you know which category you fit into, there are a couple things that you need to be aware of about yourself. Like I just mentioned, I noticed that I was a little bit weak in the editing area, which is why I needed a little bit more structure starting. And it didn't have to be like a set foundation, but a little bit more structure has definitely helped, and the editing process is way easier. But not saying that it can't work the other way around. A lot of people are really strong in their understanding of plot and character development and can just do it right off, or know exactly how they need to edit it and how it can be done right when they finish the first draft or shortly thereafter. So my first tip for the first kind of pantser is to not delay your writing with plotting or with expectations. Just let it all go. Let everything that I've said, other people have said, just go and just sit down and write. Delaying the process makes it more painful, makes it seemingly huge, this humongous task that you just can't tackle. So my suggestion for you is to just set it all aside if you have any expectations sitting on you that plotters are better than pantsers, and go down to your desk and write. And writing might come to you easier this way, just without any pre-planned thing in your mind, and it might just come out of you and it might be something brilliant. It might not be, but that's what editing's for, and if you just do what you love, your readers will feel that. So the second kind, I would suggest outlining or doing a bit of character development or figuring out a little plot point that makes you really excited for your story. Those kinds of little peeks inside your world can help you be excited every time you write and you sit down to write. Now, all that said, knowing your strengths and your weaknesses is probably the most important thing you can do. So if you are aware of which type you are, that already helps you out a little bit. But knowing if you're good at character connection or in-depth plot points and in-depth world building, that can be really helpful too. Or knowing where you're weak, like character dialogue, or maybe finishing out threads that you make. These things, if you're aware of them, you can figure out ways to combat them. With me, I sometimes write rambly dialogue. I write gibberish just to get the words on the page. And my story is mostly carried out through actions or thoughts or things that happen rather than the character dialogue, even though that's one of the most important parts of story is character dialogue. So I have known that weakness about myself, and I combat it every time that I sit down to write. I tell myself, why is this dialogue important? How can I make this better? Even if I'm just rough drafting it, sometimes it's okay to just mumble over something, but in the long run, for me, I know that dialogue is definitely a struggle. So every time I sit down and I'm aware of that, it becomes easier to master that skill of dialogue. If you're weak in other areas like world development, there are lots of things that you can do, like making maps or just using the senses around you in order to build the world up more, or using characters to push it rather than plot. Things like this can really help if you're struggling in other areas, or if you're just struggling to come up with a character name. We've all been there. We've all sat down at our computers and searched for 30 minutes just to find a name that we really enjoy, even though we know if we pick a name that we don't particularly like and we write it enough, we will like it. And just these little nuances, little things can help us enormously as writers. And pantsers especially, if we know our weaknesses, sitting down before we've even got an idea fully mapped out in our brain, it can help us immensely when we're sitting down to draft. So if you're struggling with anything, just let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to make a video on how you can combat it or how you can work around your weaknesses. I would love to know. And let me know if you're type 1 or 2 of the pantsers we've discussed, or if you're a plotter and you just kind of want to learn more about pantsers. I'd be in the comments ready to answer your questions. So continuing on with the series, I will be doing how to be productive as a pantser, how to work with other authors when you write differently, plotting versus pantsing, or how to edit your work once you've pantsed it, or the idea to words as a pantser. All these videos will be coming up in future videos, and I hope you will be subscribed and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys again very soon. Bye!